As above, so below, as within, as without. Welcome to Wheel of Ezekiel Astrology Podcast, episode 18, The Decans of the Zodiac, part 4. I'm your host, Ezekiel LaRosa. I'm joined once again today by astrologer and author Michael Suter for the fourth part in our series on the Decans of the Zodiac, exploring the nuances of the subdivisions of each of the signs. Michael, welcome. Thanks for joining me again.
Thanks for having me again. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to complete our series today, looking at the signs of Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So let's see. I guess we'll just to start off. Did you want to preface from the previous episode, kind of the transition we're making from Sagittarius now into Capricorn, and kind of set that up? Because there's a story that's interweaved here, right? That we've just been exploring through each of the elements. So I'll let you take it away then with that.
Yeah, precisely. So we're moving here from the fall into the winter. So we're moving from the life force here is descending from from sort of the trunk of the tree, in the fall down into the root. So we want to kind of remember that as our metaphor as we move into Capricorn time. This is we're getting into the kind of the starkness and adversity of winter. So there's a whole vibe that's going on as we move into the winter season that we got to keep that in mind as we're moving in here. So moving into Capricorn 1, this is you want to announce the
the card of the minor arcana using the Thoth deck here. It's called the Lord of Change. It's the two of discs or pentacles in the Rider-Waite. That's the name of the suit for Earth, right? So one of my favorite depictions, actually, of all the cards. It's a very pretty card. That dualistic depiction, pretty much. This decan is ruled by Jupiter by the Chaldean order and Saturn by triplicity. And there we go. The classic Rider-Waite. Right. Both of them have the sideways 8, the loop, right? The infinity loop.
Yep.
Lemniscate. Right. Yep. The man there trying to juggle, trying to balance two things, and kind of signifying beginnings, because like you said, we have transitioned or are transitioning into a new season now, the beginning of Capricorn, beginning of winter time. So there's definitely big changes that are being felt both inwardly and externally as well, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, with the seasonal change being very clear by this point.
Right. So it's a huge transition of rulership of the season as we move into Saturn rule. So we move from a pretty beneficent ruler into pretty much the harshest ruler of the season.
Yeah, so it's curious. Sorry, real quick. We're transitioning. Jupiter's handing off the baton from Sagittarius to Saturn and Capricorn. But curious that this first decan is where they both kind of meet and both kind of have like mutual ground, even though it is Saturn's sign. So Saturn has the upper hand and that he rules Capricorn collectively. But it's interesting that this transitional point has both of them as rulers. Is there anything about that you wanted to touch on and go on?
Right. So it's if you want to get sort of into a bigger picture, this is Saturnalia time, where we have Saturn
right, the solstice.
Takes over the rule. And if anybody wants to check out my Substack, you can see I've written a piece about how Saturnalia is actually sort of a Passover for where Jupiter is sort of being hidden away at this point. And when Saturn wants to eat all of his children, essentially, he is fooled by being given a rock, a stone, and Saturn eats that stone, and Jupiter is able to be hidden away by Hera in the cave. So that's sort of one of the that's sort of a background to this decan. So this decan, let's get into it here. So the one of the major images of this is the headless man.
Okay.
Yeah, an interesting thing. So when we talk about the headless, we think about the which is a one of these, I believe, a
Could you
Solomonic
could
rite.
you repeat that? It cut out right when you said you were saying something.
It's the headless rite.
The headless right.
The
Okay.
headless rite. Yep,
Okay.
it's an important magical rite.
It's a ritual, right?
It's a
Okay.
ritual, yes.
Hmm.
So is this character who is this headless man who has eyes on the bottom of his feet.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
this is a character who he's associated to dowsing. He's associated with seeing into the ground, and this is sort of the real estate decan. This is where we
Mm.
look for the right location. We might not be able to find necessarily the best location, but we're going to be able to do the best we can with the information we have, and we're going to be able to take the higher ground. We're going to go to the places that have the best resources.
Mm.
We're going to find the most strategic places to the most where there's the most opportunities to do the things we need to do. There's also like knowledge of resources, being able to see what kind of resources available in a certain place. It's associated to gems and crystals and mining. Those are some of the things that are usually thought of with this.
Okay.
Finding water is another
Okay.
thing. So it's also the decorators decan. So it's like you got a house and what can I do with this house? What can I do? I can put some throw pillows over here. I can, make sure that my bed's not facing the door. It's sort of like all these these
Mm.
ideas that you get from feng shui. It's like making the best of the location, the physical stuff that you have. So that's the Jupiter in
Hmm.
that. So it's about the understanding the rules too. It's like you got to know the rules, and a lot of these it's about natural rules too. So it's sort of
Mm.
this being able to like have a good time and live it up in within these particular rules and be able to see where your opportunities are. So there's your Jupiter, and
Hmm.
Saturn is got basically the here is providing the limitations. Essentially, he's the one who's going to try and stop all these things. you know
Mm. But
but
also
the
giving form as well, because Jupiter is like the division, and then Saturn is the structure that gives it form and
structure,
kind of
yeah,
brings it into the world.
right, exactly. So
Right.
he gives this whole thing form and flesh.
Mm.
And this is the two, the malefic and the benefic of the day sect. So it's got
Mm.
this, as you see in the cards, you've got a very strong contrast between these two rulers who are acting at cross purposes in a lot of ways. But this is the juggling act here that they were seeing.
Hmm.
We got the rules, we got the stuff that we need to do, and then we also have the aspiration to make this the things we have perform as well as they possibly can, to make things as good as they possibly can through our understanding and having it's not in the head, it's in the feet here. We got which is sort of an interesting we usually think of the feet as Pisces, which
All
is
right.
kind of an interesting thing. So we have an interesting foreshadowing here too, because the next time we're going to see these two rulers together is the first decan of Pisces. So we're going to have these same two
Yes,
characters again,
that's right. Hmm.
also in this
It cut out real quick.
and very complicated kind of
Could you say that again? Sorry, it cut
relationship.
out for a second, Michael.
Yep. So these two characters, these two archetypes, have a very conflicted relationship, but here they're kind of coming together to you can make the best of things here. You can really like
Yeah.
use your rules and use your knowledge to make things better. So
Right. Right.
let's move into Cap 2 here.
Right. Yeah. And the card for this is the Three of Discs or Pentacles,
Yep.
which is called the Lord of Works. So the three kind of implies that something's underway. Essentially, the rulers are Mars by Chaldean order and Venus by triplicity. And there we
Right.
go. Right. Again, three, the builder. Right. So
Builder. Yep.
kind of yeah, that the triangle always symbol of that's essentially the smallest number of things can be reduced to. So things are beginning to take shape now, moving
Right.
into the central part of Capricorn, which would be like January by now. Well, definitely January,
Yep.
uh, which is the secular New Year. Interesting enough. So it's like things are getting started, getting moving in a different direction, definitely resolutions of that kind, whatever people want to start trying to actualize. But yeah, what's the symbols? What are the symbols associated with this decan?
So this decan is you'll see the pyramid here and the cathedral. So you got those are pretty, those are pretty intuitive.
Hmm.
Building. This is definitely a place, a building, and one
Right,
other
Mars.
character you'll see traditionally is sort of a this shining knight who's got apparently has terrible teeth. He's got really bad teeth.
Oh, okay.
Running around and he's building things. He's building like aqueducts. He's building cathedrals. He's like going around and like making amazing infrastructure development. So this is we've got Mars, who is this sort of the force behind this, that this like urge um, to transcend, to make something great.
Mm.
And it's this is like the project manager decan here. This is the where you've got the
Mm.
Venus who's got this vision of beauty, the
Hmm.
the this calling to do something incredibly beautiful, and then you have Mars who wants to emerge and bring it all together into emerging out of the Earth.
Hmm.
There's some potential here for hubris, like it's this great vision that's so great that you can get sort of an Icarus kind of vibe off of this decan,
Yeah.
and you'll
Right.
sometimes see a guy who's looking at a bird. That's one of the images you see for,
Okay. A guy looking at a bird.
and he's like, I thinking, I could do that too. What's that?
I guess it cut out for a minute and made it hear the whole thing. You said a guy looking at a bird, and what else after that?
Yeah, a guy looking at a bird, and that's this will to fly, this will to do the impossible.
Okay, so that is what's implied essentially there. Looking at the bird and kind of seeing, okay, a bird that's in flight and wanting to
Yeah,
essentially soar to those heights and aspire to something great,
yeah, something great or even godlike, so godlike that you make it struck down for your incredible hubris to want
like
to
the
do.
Titanic or something like that.
Yeah,
Building like
exactly.
right,
Yeah,
it was a beautiful, luxurious ship, very Martian, right? Built all this metal, like the ships are right, very powerful ship that that allegedly the man who built it said, or the guy that had it built said that it was such a strong ship and that it was indestructible that God himself couldn't even destroy it. And then, of course, the story so goes, right?
right, exactly. This is
You're
sort of
right.
the Titanic decan.
Nice.
This is
Yeah.
the place where you've got the this artistic vision, and
Hmm.
you've got this incredible will to make something here. This is
Hmm.
very Masonic too. This decan has got a very strong Masonic kind of like vibe to it.
Mm.
So Venus, is, as I said,
Right.
it brings this beneficence to it. It is cold, and it's Mars here is incredibly powerful because Mars, of course, in Capricorn is in his exaltation,
Yes, yes.
which has
Right.
always been, something that I found really interesting because Mars,
Hmm.
again, we got these kind of very contrasting archetypes. Mars in a Saturn place. It's like, how does that work? But
It
in
does. With Venus as well, she gets a special kind of dignity I found because of Saturn being exalted in Libra. So
right,
there's this sort of
exactly.
like special treatment you could say, kind of that. I don't know. I really like Venus and Capricorn. At least what I've seen. I've seen some very good manifestations of that come.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely got a certain reception is the traditional term.
Reception. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
right.
So
Kind
this
of
is
an aesthetic for like old things too. I've found because it's Venus Saturn in this case I know it's Mars, but kind of Venus and Capricorn kind of has this idea for like antiques or maybe restoring antiques or
right,
reviving an old style that has a kind of a vintage feel to it, but
right.
maybe revamping it in some way that makes it modern too or durable.
Yeah,
So
yep, yep. And the last time we saw Venus and Mars together was under Mercury's rule in Gemini, where we had this
okay, right.
the the will to be both the warrior and also the artist here. So, and this is sort of taking that and bringing it further, where we're really melding these two kind of archetypal visions into one in a very successful way here. More conflicted and raw. This is like the Saturn gives it sort of this groundedness and also the higher dignity of because both these archetypes have their have triplicity in this sign too, whereas in Gemini, neither of them did. So it's
Mhm.
a they're stronger to begin with. So let's move into Cap 3 at this point.
Very good. Yeah. Third decan of Capricorn. The minor arcana assigned to it is the Four of Discs or Pentacles, the Lord of Power. This is kind of a curious one because they're not actually circular. They're like four like towers. The two different ways you can look at it. I really love the artistic depiction of this. Is you can see it from above is
Yep.
one way of looking down, right? Or else just I don't know. There's a lot of fun ways to look at this card. You kind of turn it different ways and see different dimensions of it. But it implies structure because it's four. So now you have a solid foundation. And then, right, like the old miser as well, hanging on to, the four discs. Um, right.
Right.
Very
Right.
good. Classic disc.
Yep. So this is Aquarius 3 is and
Capricorn 3.
the rulers.
Right.
Yep.
Capricorn cell. Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So the rule is exactly, yeah. So, by the Chaldean order of descent, the sun is the ruler and the triplicity ruler is Mercury. So, right.
Yep. Exactly. Okay,
Have we
so
had
this
have we had this pairing before in a
Sun and Mercury, yes, in the first decan of
Virgo?
Virgo.
Virgo, that's right. I knew. Okay,
Yeah, and
another Earth sign.
that's a really great decan as well. That's a
Hmm.
very profound decan where we saw a lot of the humility yet extreme greatness of Mercury in that. This is a very similar decan in a lot of ways, but it's distinctly Saturnian, and we'll find out
Right, and
why.
Mercury doesn't have the high dignity it does in Virgo here, of course.
No,
So a
no.
little different, but yeah, some parallels.
Yep.
Right, Sun, Mercury. Okay,
So
what
this is
images?
the RWS Tarot has this one pretty much nailed. This is the big chair. This is the throne. Is
Okay.
the theme of this decan. This is where you find the chairperson, the CEO, the prime minister. It's got a particularly Saturnian sort of vibe to it. So it's not really a king here, but this is a
Hmm.
guy who's like you go up to this person and it's like the magistrate where he's going to give you an edict.
No,
If
it's an
you go,
authority figure for sure. Right,
it's
whatever level of that. That's why it's called power. The
yep,
minor arcana. Right, so it definitely implies having a lot of rule, a lot of authority to dictate things and
yep,
make
precisely.
and give orders, right? Right. And with
Yeah.
the sun there too, essentially being that archetype of rulership, right? Of kingliness.
Yep,
Uh,
of authority. Yep, exactly.
okay, right.
So this is a highly pressurized decan. This is a place of so whatever this person sitting behind this chair says goes. So
Mm,
whatever they pronounce is going to have a lot of consequence.
mm,
So it's very stressful place. This is a great place, when you've got good planets here. If you got one of those two planets, you've got Saturn here, you got potential for being able to make those decisions and, with a good bit of fairness and, without much prejudice. But if you have bad planets here, the whole thing can weigh down on your head. This is like having that person sitting in the chair, like single you out for like
mm,
the edict is going to be that you lose your house and you've got to like leave the country and you're going to prison, whatever it is. This is
mhm.
that those edicts coming down on your head are gonna weigh pretty heavy. So there's a lot of pressure here. And the other thing about this decan is that there's always other people looking to take that chair away from you. So if you have that,
Constantly having to protect it, right?
somebody else is going to want that chair.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a it's great when you got it, but you got to understand that it's not a safe place to be.
Well,
Much
you have to.
like the
You have
Pope. This is like the Pope dying on Easter was a little suspect to me. That was because
mm,
given
or at
the
least the
history
announcement of it, but
of
yeah.
assassinations of popes, if you actually look at how many of them have been assassinated, it's
Mm,
a similar situation where you've got that extraordinary pressure, but you've got an incredible amount of power. So it's yeah, it's you don't necessarily want the big chair, and you certainly don't want to have the attention of the person of the big chair, because that, it can weigh down on you. It's not necessarily a good
Right. Not unless you're willing to deal with all that entails, the consequences of it, of
consequence.
constantly being on guard, having to watch your back, and
Yeah.
all that. But it certainly could be, seems like it could be a very productive place for a leader if there
Oh,
was benefics there, like saying having Jupiter there, particularly, or the Sun
yeah.
even, Capricornians
Yeah.
with those placements, or even
Right.
on the ascendant. It could definitely be. I mean, it could be your dictator, but it could also be just your CEO that is very competent and is fair to his employees, perhaps. I mean,
Right.
just to give a very basic example.
Yeah,
Um,
and Mercury here will give you the ability to hear a lot of different opinions.
yeah,
And so Mercury here is really good because it'll take a lot of information in, and it's
like
more highly, it's more likely to be judicious in its
yeah.
with the
But
opinion.
empowered communication seems to be because you're talking about a place of a lot of pressure, a lot of power. It's also
Right.
a way of effective communication that's
Yeah.
assertive. It gets the point across. Mercury operating
Yes.
in Saturn's realm like that, it's very to the point. It's not long-winded necessarily. It may be a man of, or I don't know if I'm saying a man, but a person of a few words, but very direct and to the point in its
Right.
communication is what I'm seeing with that blend of the two.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Exactly. All right on point. So yeah, so those are the decans of Capricorn. You can see there's sort of this. There's a very earthbound and practical
mhm.
aspect to all of these decans. It's a varied batch, but you can see it sort of moves through this from sort of Jupiter in Capricorn's. It's a problematic place. That's his fall. So like,
Yes.
but it's about making the best of things, and then it moves through that. It's like you've got a journey into then like
Hmm.
you've made the best of it. Now you're moving up into the world, and you're going to actually do the great work. You're going to
Right.
make a mark that nobody will ever forget, like the pyramids or a great cathedral. This is something that will be remembered forever.
Sure. This is just the initial stage because we just entered winter here, and this is
Yep.
so it has to do with kind of because Saturn's overall role is to preserve the root, so preserve the energy throughout this part of Capricorn. So the idea of preserving power, preserving, whatever this energy is that you're going to need, that that needs to be protected deep beneath the ground, right, in order for it to then life in springtime to be able to once again emerge. Um,
Nice.
that's just what I'm thinking there. The idea of preservation a lot, just kind of something that just came to me in terms of these
Right.
three decans
Absolutely.
in particular.
Yep. Absolutely.
So now we can transition. Now that we've initiated the winter into the fixed part of winter, which is Aquarius. So
Yes.
the first decan of Aquarius corresponds to the Five of Swords, which is called the Lord of Defeat in the Thoth deck. And the decan rulers are Venus by the Chaldean order and Saturn by triplicity. And there we go, the man with five swords. That's always been a very curious scene. Not always kind of one of the more puzzling ones of the swords. You kind of see a little bit of a maybe kind of deceptive. I don't know. Like there's something there that's a little bit off. That it's almost like one of those things you kind of have to look at for a while and try to tease out. Almost like one of those scenes that's got like a hidden picture in it or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Like Austin doesn't particularly like this card. He feels like it
Mhm.
doesn't do justice for what's really going on here.
Right.
But
What
I mean,
was what is the image he associates with it? Because I've always wanted to find a better image to correlate to this deck on
so Austin likes to think of it as the Scarlet Letter.
the Scarlet Letter. Okay.
Scarlet Letter. This is the place where it's a place of the pioneer who is you've got your structures have been set up in Capricorn. We've laid down the law there. We've got our structure, like our beautiful cathedral. We've
Right.
got the guy who's like able to find all the resources to build the cathedral, and
Hmm.
then we've got inside our cathedral we've got the guy who's sitting there at the big chair. So we've got our full like power structure set down here. Like this is
Hmm.
an imposing power structure that we're left with at the end of Capricorn. In Aquarius, we've decided that we don't really want to live under that power structure anymore. This is where we're going to get away from that, and we're going to set up a new power structure. But
Hmm.
we're going to have to deal with the consequence of doing that in this new place.
Hmm.
So, and it's not just an individual here necessarily, even though it might be, it could be the individual who decides that we're going to do this, but it's like we're taking our whole collective and we're gonna, we're about to, in that card we can see there's a body of water there. It's like they've either just come across that body,
You just cut
they've
out, Michael.
left that power
Could you could
structure.
you could you repeat
They've
that?
left the
Sorry.
power structure. Sure.
Okay, you're talking
They've
about.
So the people in the card are like the pioneers who have left.
Well, the rebels. So that's kind of
Yeah,
Aquarius, right? It's the rebels, the dissenters, the ones that don't agree with the centralized power. That's more like Capricorn, and this is kind of
right.
the let's create our own new power, our own new structure, our own system,
Yep.
out in the wastelands or whatever, away from society, right?
Yeah, and
Right.
this place is probably not like a place with amenities. This is a place where the consequence is that you have to live with less. You've got to live in a place
Hmm.
that may be uncivilized. The people who are
Exactly.
maybe people there already who don't want you there.
Yeah, hostile.
These are things that could be problems here. It's a place of expedition. Like this is a place where we're taking on a new thing, and it can also be because we got Venus here, Venus and Saturn,
Okay. Just
and
like
we have
journeys. When you say expedition, it makes you think of journeys, kind of like the pioneers sitting out like on the Oregon Trail or going west, having
yes,
to deal with, other tribes attacking their their wagons or whatever, and
right,
having to defend against that, having to take all the supplies and, do with less, essentially having to survive on their own just without anybody helping them, essentially having to be self-sufficient
yep,
and all
yep.
that,
And then
right?
you
So,
have to build new structures then in order to do that. You've got to
right.
like structure your
Yeah,
society, structure your group, your
right.
collective in a way that you can protect yourselves and you can be taken care of. And
Yep.
again, this is the winter time, so we're talking
Mm,
about this is the time when the root, we're still in the root now, but the root is being aerated. We're like preparing for like the next place where, in Pisces, we're gonna see the water come in so that we can we're preparing for the shoot to come up. Here we're still
mm,
in the root, but like there's stirrings of something new emerging. So that root, it's like the shoot is conceit. It's like the conception of that idea of starting to come up away from the root.
mhm.
So we've got that idea, and we've got Venus here as our Chaldean, excuse me, yeah, our Chaldean ruler.
Yep.
So
Okay.
there's sort of this artistic thing. So this could be sort of a person who wants to move their art into a different direction, into a place where it's you don't want to do the same art that other people do. You don't want to create the way other people did.
Mhm.
So there's that part of it, but this is also a place of outcasts, of freaks.
Outcast. I was going to say, yeah, yeah. Well, it's very, Aquarian essence, very very punk rock, very DIY, very
Yeah,
counterculture. That's what the punk movement was. It's just kind of going underground. You're rock and roll, but you just do it on your own terms. You're not signed necessarily by big labels. You don't have a lot of fancy equipment. You just kind of do what you can with what you have. The aesthetic is, kind of grimy and maybe rough edge. You make your own clothes. All of this, all the stuff like that for
yeah,
your own
all
movement,
that
right?
stuff.
Yeah,
Yep, yeah, exactly.
that's
But
the
again,
picture.
this is still Saturn rule. So we're talking about
Yep.
creating a new structure rather than the Mars where we're going to go to war with everybody. This is Aquarius is still Saturn. So we're talking about making new structures, making new.
Right, but it's the visionary Saturn. Like the way I see
Yeah,
Aquarius, it's the other side of the coin of Saturn. That's
right.
not just per se the antithesis, but it's the other expression of Saturn. That's it's his masculine sign, right? So it's a little
Right.
bit more forward and not so much conservative of the
Yeah.
status quo. It's trying to forge your own new structure, right? It's very
Yes.
visionary, very progressive. You could even say, in a sense, inventive, imaginative, even genius. You could say, right? All those key Aquarian
Yep.
words,
And
but.
it
Yeah.
again, so it is creating a new order, so there can be mistakes when you're creating
Mm,
new orders, or that you can be. This can get very dystopian. This can get to the point
mm.
where you've got people trying to create something new, and then you're trying to be more pure than everybody else because this is you're making a
Yeah,
new thing, so you got to be the most pure in that. So it gets a little cultural revolution kind of idea where you get
yep,
people like turning on each other because they're not like following the new thing pure enough.
yep.
So it can get
Because
pretty ugly there if you've got like you've got
competition of hierarchies essentially, because several
yeah,
people want to establish power or compete for power, different
yeah,
factions. You could say
yeah,
it's
and if
kind
you're
of
building
kind of
your
Mad Max
paradigm
in a
on
way.
rejection,
I mean,
yeah, You're
Yeah,
very Mad Max. Yeah,
yeah, that's
but
the
it's
scene. I'm kidding.
building. It's
Go
like
ahead. Sorry.
building on rejection. You know,
Mm,
that's if your first principle is rejection, how far are you willing to go in rejection?
mm.
That's it's a slippery slope. Like, you know.
Yeah.
So let's move into the next decan of Aquarius, which is a very interesting one as well.
Yep. The second decan of Aquarius. This is the card. It's the Six of Swords, the Lord of Science. Another favorite card.
Hmm.
Because Saturn rules the sciences, and we're in Aquarius, which is one of the more scientific signs as well. So very fitting. We're here in the middle decan. The rulers are actually both Mercury, both by Chaldean order and triplicity. So Mercury and Aquarius, and there we go. Yes, hold it up a little bit more. Just at least from where I see, I don't see the full card, only half of it. Well,
Okay.
no, back it up and just raise it a little bit. There we go. Now you can see the woman, right? Right. So you see the six swords in the little boat or
Yep.
or barge, right, being paddled it across some
Yeah.
canal or something. Okay, so there you have crossing something, right? We're
Yep.
moving into newer territory, or foreign
Yeah.
territory, perhaps even. Uh,
This is a very Mercury place here.
hmm
So this
Yep.
is the lineman between worlds here. This is the place. This is a place of Hecate. This is a place of the psychopomp. This is
Aha.
the very much the merchant too, who goes between shores, and the people aren't willing to cross those shores. You know, they don't know what's on the other side. So you can make a
Mm.
good profit when the other people don't know what's really going on over there. You can say
Well,
pretty much
sure.
what you want
Right. You
about
can
what's
row over
going
to
on.
one side and talk to them and give them one offer, one spiel, and say you're selling it for this price, and then go to the other side and have a different rhetoric. And obviously, you have the advantage that neither of the two parties can communicate, so you have that monopoly, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing here. A lot of back
Yeah.
and forth movement, which is very Mercury. If
Yes.
short trips.
Yep. Yeah. So this is again, it is short trips. This is not
Hmm
the ocean. They're crossing a river. They're crossing some sort of divide. That's you can
hmm
think of this as one side being sort of this can be the psychopomp. This can be going to the other side here,
Okay.
but it can also be. We've already got this contrast between the Aquarian and the Capricornian idea. So it could be going back and forth between the
Right.
old way and the new way. So it's like it's pioneering in this way of like creating commerce of ideas between two things that either
hmm
cannot or do not want to be in touch with each other. This can also be the masculine and the feminine too. This can be
Uh-huh.
the two, just like Mercury goes back and forth between the sect and the day sect. He's a commingler between the two of them.
You
So
said
this is
between the
there's
night sect and the day sect? It cut out for a
yes,
sec, so just want
exactly.
to make sure I got that. Night and day sect, right? Yeah, well,
Yeah,
he's right on the helm in Hellenistic astrology, which is where the ascendant is. So it's the idea that he's above and below. He goes between both realms, right? He's essentially
right.
right at that point where the sun is both below and above the horizon line,
Right,
essentially.
exactly. Yeah,
Right.
yep.
Okay.
That's where he likes to be.
Exactly. Okay.
So it's mercenary too. This is like you get this idea of the mercenary. So there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
images here of a very rich person who often has a beard,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got like a bag of jewels usually, and but they have no home. This is somebody who lives kind of between places,
Just on the road. Mm-hmm.
lives on the road, lives
Yeah.
like the gypsy,
A caravan of sorts.
yeah, this gives you a little bit of a pirate vibe too, where you're on the high
Uh-huh.
seas and you're like, you're doing stuff that nobody
Yeah.
knows what you're really doing.
Or
You
river
don't.
pirates or something like that, where you just you go back and forth to this little strip of a river or something, right?
Right,
And
right,
people have to pay you to get across, perhaps. So there's that idea kind of the psychopomp that we'll take you across to the other shore, but you have to pay us. So there's that
right,
merchant
right.
aspect,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Okay.
the ferryman.
The
It's very much
ferryman.
the ferryman. And
Yep.
again, we're like this the river Styx here. This is all like
That's what I was gonna say, the river Styx, because we
yeah,
are in the underworld. I mean, since Libra, we've
yeah.
been in the darker half, which is ruled
We
by
are,
Saturn.
yeah, we
So
are in the
so
underworld here, definitely.
yep.
So yeah, this is also a place of science, as you mentioned. This is where research can be done because it's
hmm
like you're taking in uh, various opinions, various ideas, and Mercury here is very cold. This is like it's not a emotional place necessarily. It's a Saturn rule, so it's kind
hmm
of free of these some of the pressure you get when there's it's not the fertile time of year.
No,
So
it's
you
just
can
cold and objective. It's very,
hold
very much
objective. So it's more just
purely
data.
logical.
We're just looking at the facts. We're
Hmm.
looking at what's coming in, what's going out. Mercury tends to, in other places where it's more busy, it's like there is that Mercury side of him where he likes the bustle, he likes the hustle, he likes
Hmm.
to be like people coming, people going. Here it's not that much. It's more just the information is coming in. So it's like very
Hmm.
powerful Mercury here. He's in triplicity, quite
Hmm.
double decan. This is a great placement for
Yeah,
Mercury.
and an air sign as well. So, because
An
I
air sign,
found
yeah, so,
Mercury does
yeah,
best in air signs in general, I find.
yeah, with the
So,
exception of Virgo, of course, where he's got super special, where he's got
oh,
a
well, right, with exaltation. But I was saying between Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, and then of course
yeah,
Virgo for exaltation are the
yeah,
best
yeah,
places I've seen for Mercury. But yeah,
right.
very good. This second, any other points you wanted to touch on with this second?
No, let's move into three, and we can connect the whole thing.
All right, very good. Yeah. So the third decan of Aquarius is ruled or correspondent to the Seven of Swords, which is the Lord of Futility, is what it's
Lord of
titled.
Utility. Yep.
The rulers are the Moon by Chaldean order and Venus by triplicity. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, the man with seven sword. Yeah, stealing swords out of the tent or
Yep.
something like that. Except
Yep.
yeah, being sneaky, kind of the idea
Yep.
of getting in there and getting out quickly without being noticed. There's this kind of
Right.
a kind of sly, swift kind of a vibe to it.
Right. Right. Right.
Mm,
This is a really super interesting decan.
mm,
So we got this dude who's like, looks like he's stealing stuff. Maybe he's like, he maybe, he could be a lot of things, but
hmm.
the swords are particularly important here because the image of this decan is actually the knot, like the twisted up
Mm.
knot.
Yep,
And
yep. Because we're
this
talking
can
about
go,
intellect here. So yeah,
yeah,
so your head being tied into not your mind being tied in knots or something like that, like one of
precisely.
those.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Hmm.
This is a place of this could be the Gordian knot too, the knot that is gets so entangled, so many things are mixed up
Yep.
in this thing that are you gonna just take the sword and you're gonna cut it?
Yep.
But like if you
Hmm.
take the sword and cut it, then the consequence of cutting that knot might be
Yeah.
extraordinary. So
Yep.
we've got Saturn as a ruler, so there's going to be consequences if we do the wrong thing. So this is we've got Venus and the Moon, so we're getting back to being grounded here in this decan. Whereas in the previous decan we had Mercury, and
Hmm.
he was kind of in this liminal space, the place of like Hecate, where you're between worlds. Now we're back, and it's kind of like we've got a lot of information now from that last decan. We've moved through that, and we have a ton of information. But can we make a decision? One of
Right.
the images of this is a loud and angry man who is highly critical of things.
Okay.
And this is where we get the Lord of Futility. So this amount of information that this person has, it's like you're finding fault. You've got like all these things mixed up together. You
Mhm.
don't know what to do.
Yeah, they're just shouting, and but like if that's going to solve it, it's futile to complain and just curse
Right.
and just get all upset and worked up about something. It's obviously not solving the problem, but nonetheless, there's that emotion because it's the moon ruled to me that the idea of getting caught up in the emotions of frustration of not being able to undo the knot is kind of something
Right.
I'm seeing.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the potential things that's going on here is
Mm.
this in, in
It cut out
this
for a sec.
this tangled thing.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So it's another place of enmeshment, like just we had in the moon and Venus in the first decan of Cancer. We had enmeshment, like this
Mhm.
kind of beautiful way where there's like the child and the mother. It's like where does one begin? Where's the other one end? It's sort of that beautiful enmeshment. Here, this is not so good because we got these two archetypes. They're both we're in a triplicity they don't like. It's air, and it's the final decan of this sign. It's Saturn ruled. It's like
Yep.
everything's very limiting, and
Hmm.
it's fairly pressurized because we've already broken away from one thing. At the beginning, we've like started this voyage away
Hmm.
from the Capricornian like power structure, and then we like figured out we could like do this some like some trade. We could do some things with this, but then
Hmm.
like everything is kind of gone to hell because it's like everything's all mixed up together.
Yeah, and curious to note, well, Venus rules as one of the rules, at least of both the first and last decan. So it's just with the
Right.
exception, of course, that middle section. So she was with Saturn in the first, now she's with the Moon.
Yep.
So this is as her, I guess, partner in rulership. But so and the fact that they're both feminine and a more masculine sign that's more action oriented, maybe too, is kind of the idea
Yeah.
of maybe getting caught up a little bit in like emotion, sentimentality, and not really working toward taking action in a sense, maybe being a bit more passive and receptive. Or is
Yeah, this
that
is
what I'm
not a
getting at?
territory they like. This is not the place they want to be because this is also it's every sign has a cardinal, a fixed, and a mutable decan within it. So it's like we're each one is like
A
a
subdivision.
microcosm of the whole season. So we're in a
So you
mutable.
you subdivide each of the decans then into three subsections, is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that each like within each sign there's like
Okay, well,
a
so first decan would be the cardinal, the
yeah,
second decan would be the fixed, and the last one now
right.
the mutable. I see what you're
Yep.
saying. Okay,
So
right, of
this
course.
this is it's a mutable decan within that within the fixed sign. So it's
Yeah.
also it's like change is about to happen. It's
Hmm.
not where these archetypes like to be.
Yeah, not
Again,
trying
it's
to.
a sense of immersion, but it's a cerebral immersion. It's like immersion in your head and not being able to get out.
Hmm.
So stop thinking about it and act, or should I just keep analyzing? And like, is the analysis just like futile, or do you have to go another step with it? Because with any knot like this, there's gonna be things in it that are extremely valuable that you might
Mm.
want to hold on to. There might be things that
You cut out there, Michael.
yourself. So
Sorry, could you repeat
so
that?
as I was saying, if you cut the knot, you might wind up
Mhm.
hurting yourself
Yeah.
essentially, or like causing a great deal of pain to your family and your the way you make money or whatever. You could really like,
Hmm.
screw yourself here by doing the wrong
Yeah,
thing.
severing some long ties, which is why you have to take
Yeah.
it slow. May recommend it to, always think things through for this particular
Right.
decan. If there's things that are just
Yep.
don't act too quickly because you need to
Yep.
take a minute to take in all the potential consequences of any action. Is right,
Right.
basically what you're saying.
Yeah. So
Right.
within these two rulers, you actually see the moon will sometimes do better in this case because the moon is like often prepared to like grab its stuff and just go. It's like
Mhm.
it's a little bit more the migrant, ready to
Right.
like just
Well,
just move along.
the moon's nature
Venus,
is changeable anyway, so I would think with
yeah,
changeability, for a fixed sign, it changes anyways throughout. It's constantly changing throughout the whole month, the whole cycle. So the adaptability there.
right, exactly. And
Okay.
then Venus is trying to harmonize. Venus is trying to
Right.
make people happy, and
Hmm.
that's a harder thing to do when you've got a knotted up situation like this. To try and make anybody happy is like
Hmm.
really doesn't lead to good places. So
That diplomat. Yeah. Yeah.
So that this is a decan that's if this comes up as a relationship significator, this is a really difficult one because this is
Hmm.
one thing to say too about this decan is in the wheel of the year, this is where Valentine's Day falls, which is a
Right. We're talking
horrible
about mid-February. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
this is a
Uh-huh.
horrible irony because this is actually a terrible time like for a relationship
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
No.
anything to do anything relationship wise. This is awful. This is not what you
Hmm.
want. So
No.
somebody made a mistake there, or
You
they're
should have picked
trying
May or something like in the middle of Taurus season or something like that, or
something
even
like
the
that.
fall
Yeah.
for Libra. I mean, for the hell. Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
or even
Obviously.
Pisces season when you got
Oh yeah.
Venus
Right.
in exaltation. With Jupiter there, you might do better. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, so that is our third decan of Aquarius. So you can see where we've gone here. This has not been a very happy place, but the thing is, if you do navigate this properly, there is a lot to be gained from that for sure.
Sure, certainly,
It's
certainly. And it's very tactful. Like you talking about Venus trying to please both parties and keep everybody happy,
right.
because that's what Venus is, the diplomat, kind of through her
Yep.
more of her Libra archetype. But there's also the potential risk there that if you're not careful with your diplomacy, you could end up maybe pissing off both parties and actually making both enemies, rather because you're trying to appease too much to both sides in a way, or
Yeah.
that's too overt. Maybe I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
tricky fine
Exactly.
line there that I'm
Yeah.
seeing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
that image of the thief too there. So it's like you can get
Mm,
to the point where you're like, oh hell, I need to get out of here. This is too much. And then you try and get out, and then you might get caught while you're like, I'm trying,
yeah.
you're sneaking your
For
way out. You're trying to take your crap and go, and you're like,
mm,
you don't look so good at that point to the people who are still there trying to figure this stuff out.
mm.
So it's like the negotiator's nightmare, is what's going on
Yeah.
here.
Should I stay or should I go? Kind of thing like I'm damned if I
Exactly.
do, damned if I don't. Kind of like the idea, like maybe don't
Yep.
take the stuff and just get out and actually survive, or I'll attempt to take the stuff, but then you run the risk of maybe not making it out or that being the thing that weighs you down in
Yep.
terms of
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But
Yep.
definitely decisions is what I'm seeing here. So it's very fitting to have Venus there in regards
Yeah,
to
and
that.
it is Saturn here. So again, it's like
Uh,
you gotta take things methodically. You've got to go through slowly. You can't get heated about things. So if you got Mars here, you might have a lot of
ooh,
trouble. This would be a really tough
yeah.
place to find Mars.
Yeah, well,
Um,
what you were saying, the man shouting, having Mars there would definitely like
yeah,
it would
that's
seem
the
to
guy.
augment that expression of somebody that just gets all worked up and that's their emotions get to them and not let them clearly think and then making a rash decision out of anger or out of just being overly emotional about it.
Yeah,
So, okay, well,
yeah,
just a
yeah. He's
caution
probably
to
gonna take
anybody.
that.
Yeah, I would say a caution to anybody that may have placements here to they should just be aware of that that's like a volatile kind of a sensitive
Yeah,
area.
yeah, exactly,
But
exactly.
yeah, again, like you were saying, to kind of end on a positive note, that if it's mastered and it's you're able to balance it and work through it, there's a lot to be gained as we
Yeah,
transition then to
yep,
Pisces next,
yep,
winding
yeah,
down the winter season, moving into the mutable sign, mutable water.
exactly. Yep.
The the first decan of Pisces corresponds to the Eight of Cups, which is the Lord of Indolence, is the title.
Hmm.
Rulers are Saturn by Chaldean order and Jupiter by triplicity. So once again, we have this Saturn Jupiter uh, pairing, as we did with the beginning of Capricorn
Yep.
in Saturn sign. So Saturn's still, sorry, no, sorry, Jupiter sign. Sorry, we've moved
Yep.
now. Interesting. Both Saturn signs started that way. Yeah, very good. Yeah, the classic card, a man walking away, kind of like
Walking away.
abandoned works or just emotionally detaching from a situation, or working with certain
Right.
people.
Right. Right. There's sort
I've
of a
always wondered with that one because you can't see it if he's actually holding a chalice and taking one with him uh,
right.
or her, or of just leaving all eight behind and just leaving the scene, just kind of essentially abandoning whatever that project was or situation. But okay, to start Pisces off here,
Yep.
being that it's the same pairing as in Capricorn, I don't know, was there any correlations or how do you want to? I'll let you just make this transition here because we're now leaving Saturn's double two signs consecutively, right? Being Capricorn and Aquarius, and now moving into Pisces, which is Jupiter ruled, just like
Yep.
Sagittarius was. So it's Jupiter signs bookend both of Saturn's signs.
Right.
Season two,
Exactly. Yep.
right? So
Right. So
right,
this is a really interesting decan as well. This is what Austin uses the term the invisible labyrinth for this decan.
oh, okay,
And this is
invisible labyrinth.
invisible labyrinth. Yeah,
Hmm.
this is about the structures that we can't see that sort of will tend to guide us in our life. There's things that like they can be external and they sort of can be like a sunken city, like deep beneath the ocean that we can see what's down there, but like it doesn't. We're not gonna get that Saturnian feel of like of it being rock solid and like that we can touch it. This is like something that's it's very hard for us to understand what's really going on in this decan. It's submerged structures. It's things that we are dealing with in our life. So again, we're so we got to remember
It
that this is
it cut
a
out real fast.
yep, this
Sorry, if
is
you repeat that.
Pisces.
Hmm.
This is a Pisces season now. So we're in the emotional watery sign of Jupiter. So
Yep.
this sign tends to go towards the cathartic. It
Uh-huh.
tends to go towards the focus on the self in a way that's extremely internal. That's
Hmm.
um,
More behind the scenes, like wants to be hidden, because like that's what I see is like
yeah,
Pisces likes to operate from behind the scenes and not necessarily be in the spotlight, kind of.
right, yeah, and it's also very We're at the season that's right before the emergence of life into the
Mm-hmm.
extroverted world. So this is a season where it's very dreamlike because we've already gone through the winter, and the winter's had its, in our last two decades, we've gone through actually a fair amount of drama. We've gone through
Mm-hmm.
a lot because we set up our structures, we've got our cathedrals, we've got our power, and then we broke away from the power, and then we tried to set out on our own, and we found that that had its complications,
Yep.
and it wound up getting into a pretty big mess. So now this is sort of like the punch drunk time of year where we've gone through all this, we may be running out of food. We are getting
Yeah.
into a place where we're really dreaming of what is to come. So it's very hard to stay sort of focused on what's happening in front of you now. You're kind of in a
Right.
place
Because
where,
so you mentally you can kind of taste the future. You see it and you're like trying to like reach for it, but it's not entirely there. Like
right.
around this time of the year, it's generally what I experience for myself, just as we're kind of entering Pisces is kind of and kind of wanting it to be spring already, kind of like done
Right.
with winter and essentially, just dreaming about what spring will bring, essentially what visions we can actualize, what things we can plant and so
Yep.
forth. Right.
Yeah, and in this decade, we've got the two. Again, we got these two rulers, and they're flipped this time from the
The
Capricorn one.
Chaldean.
We
Yep, I
were
noted
like
that.
operating underneath Saturn's rules. So now we have Saturn operating underneath the rules of Jupiter, which are much more expansive.
Right. Well, quick question with that. So,
Yep.
which I guess I haven't asked this the whole time. With the Chaldean ruler and the triplicity ruler, does one of the two rulers have more say or more power, would you say? The Chaldean or the triplicity ruler?
So that's an interesting question because neither necessarily does.
Okay.
The triplicity ruler is sort of setting the scene more than the Chaldean ruler. The Chaldean ruler is more like the person that shows up there in a foreign land, that because the triplicity
Ah,
ruler
okay.
has triplicity there. So decanic power comes from something that's kind, as I said, it's kind of martial. It comes from within. It's not the power that comes from like knowing people. It's not from being in a
It's not external.
stiff.
It's something that's inward that individuates outward. It projects outward. Is kind of what you're saying? Because it's Martian
Yeah, yeah. This is
in
something
that
that comes
sense.
from a pure internal place,
Yeah.
as
Right.
opposed to something that's granted by your accidental location, your accident of your birth, or
Uh-huh.
your people you know. This is all about you. This is all about what you're bringing to the situation. So that's why we've got these, these sort of ongoing stories. This is the Fool again. This is the life force itself
Hmm.
that is traversing the year. So these are
Right.
the sort of the fool that's walking through. So your Chaldean ruler is more of the fool that's going, into the situation,
Okay.
getting dropped in that situation. So when you've got a
Interesting.
place like, that's again the thing about Mars is like Mars is kind of nobody's fool in this whole thing because Mars shows up in his own decan at the beginning of his, of his own sign. So
Yeah.
there's something very like unique about how Mars operates in this whole thing. Not that
Right.
it's necessarily better than any other of the archetypes, but it is something about it. So,
Right.
so yeah,
So you said Chaldean ruler, then you would correlate it with the Fool. What
yeah.
about the triplicity ruler? What arcanum or what card would you say that would be corresponding to if you were to
So
pick
that
one?
would be kind of hard to say. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
it kind of is the fool too, but it's kind of like
In a different
um,
aspect.
in a different aspect. Yeah, yeah.
Because
It's
yeah, well, Fool's pure potential. So the Fool can kind of be anywhere in the entire tarot. So likewise,
right.
walking through the Zodiac as representing the sun and its journey,
Yeah,
the Fool is the one that's actually taking the journey. So
right. Yeah,
essentially,
there's
it
because
falls
you've got
wherever.
triplicity there. You've got like a sort of the essence of that element is more of
Mm.
the that's it's staying within the element. So it's like having the power because you're in the element, but it's still this emergent power from the self as opposed to
Ah,
the that power because you're still being kind of dropped in a situation here. You're
I
like
see.
being put in like a story, and you got to like it's a fluid story because you're moving from one to the next. So it's you could even look at each decan and look at the beginning of the decan and see that's more like this, and then at the end you're kind of transitioning into the next decan a bit more. So you can see look at decans that way too.
Okay,
So
interesting.
this
Thank
is
you. We're
if
going
we
back
go
to we were
yeah
talking
back
about
to the
the fact that Saturn and Jupiter, which both of the rulers are the same from the beginning of Capricorn and now Pisces, but they're flipped. So there isn't that much of significance, or is there then? Would you say then with that?
That they're flipped. Well, yeah, I mean, because we're in Jupiter rule now. So
Right.
it's a radically different rule. So we're like, this is a lot more positive for the most part here.
Certainly.
It's not necessarily going to be easy here because we're looking at something that's like we're looking at the structures that underlie reality here.
Uh-huh.
This is, by the way, this is where my
Sorry, you cut out.
looking for
Could you say
the
that again? Sorry. You cut out right
this is
when
where
you
my
with
moon is.
where your
My
moon
moon
is.
is in
Okay.
this decan. Yeah,
Ah, okay.
yeah. So this is the Fisher King here is one of the archetypes that follows this.
Okay, yeah.
This can be somebody who's may seem to be lost. They may seem to be kind of wandering about, and nobody's sure
Mm,
exactly what they're doing because they're following
mm,
some sort of different underlying logic that is getting them somewhere, but even we're not sure where it is that they're getting them because this is a labyrinth. This is a something that you if you watch somebody doing it, you might not know like what the hell they're doing. You know, following,
mm-hmm.
looking for structures that are behind things. This can be sort of a conspiratorial decade too, because it's like you're looking for something like structures. You're looking for like power centers, because that's where you get the
But it's
Saturn.
it's invisible, though, is kind of what you were talking about, invisible
Right.
structures, because we're in Pisces, so where things aren't quite like solid and
Yep.
tangible necessarily. It's kind of like being lost at sea. It's kind of an image I'm getting in my mind a little bit, like sort of the allegory is that the sea is kind of this big maze or big labyrinth of sorts, maybe. And in terms of how
Yeah.
you navigate it,
Yep. Yeah.
it's kind of an intuitive thing, maybe, is what I'm
Right. Yeah,
kind of gathering.
navigation is another like idea here. There's
Hmm.
Saturn is traditionally linked to seafaring for a lot of reasons because of the fact that when you're at sea, you're in a very confined quarters, and there has to be discipline. There has
Hmm.
to be like a sense of order. Because if you have a ship at sea has sailors who are not following orders, and if they're not doing things, they're eating all the food. They're
It puts the whole crew at risk,
you
essentially.
put
So.
everybody at risk. So this is
Mhm.
sort of the idea you want to get with this decan. This is like trying to find that order,
Hmm.
especially in a place that's like every day at sea looks the same pretty much. It's
Right.
all looks like the
But in this
same.
case,
So
Jupiter would be the captain who's in charge because this is its sign and it's also ruling this decan, so it essentially has
right.
the upper hand with Saturn.
Yeah. So
Yeah, in
Jupiter
terms of
here would sort of be the more competent of the captains, but
right.
Saturn could also be the captain who's like having a hell of a time because he's coming out of the season where he was actually the ruler, and it's like the ice is starting to melt. It's like the structures
Hmm.
that you're used to are starting to go away, and they're slowly going away, and you're not sure why they're going away.
Hmm.
Your structures are like disappearing, and it's very slowly unnerving you. And it's in this place where things don't seem quite real, just like out at sea for a very long
Hmm.
time. It's like things get really weird. It seems like, you're not sure if you'll
Yep.
ever you might be lost. There's a lot of
Yep.
that
Yep.
sense here. So the
Very
Jupiterian,
psychological space too.
oh, it's
So
extremely psychological. This is
yeah.
an
Well,
extraordinary,
in the natural zodiac, Pisces here would be the 12th house essentially,
yeah,
or the 12th sign, right? If we're going to look at it from that angle.
yeah,
So it's that very unreal, subconscious, you could say, realm of sorts.
right,
Dreams,
right.
are dreams real or
And
not? Vivid dreams, maybe.
you should note too that the in the RWS card we saw the moon there, which
All
is
right, yeah.
interesting because the moon has triplicity here, but she also um, it's it's something very special about moon and Pisces. Now, I say that not only because I'm a moon and Pisces
No,
native,
yeah, yeah.
but
Mhm.
it's it's under Jupiter rule, and it's got triplicity. So one
Mm.
of the very basic Hellenistic ideas is that you cannot have a void of course moon in Jupiter
In Jupiter decans?
and in Pisces. The moon is always does not have to suffer the void of course.
So
So
there's no,
it's sort of a what's
just to make sure I heard you right, because it cut out for a second. You said so according to the Hellenic doctrine, the moon cannot have void of course in a Jupiter ruled decan.
yes,
Okay,
that's correct. Yes, a Jupiter
right.
ruled sign. So the
Sign.
entire yeah, yeah.
Right.
So
Just like the moon can't have any, or no planet can be exalted in the sign that the moon is in detriment, which would be Scorpio too. That's another one I've heard, just something that comes to mind. as
Right.
well. That's
Right.
that's why
Right.
there's no planet that is exalted in Scorpio, because it's the moon's
Right.
fall.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but here's kind of flipped in the sense that the moon has this like a firewall or protection by through Jupiter, right?
Yep. Yeah. So the other thing to say about this decan is the
Mm,
you got Jupiter as kind of like this potentially this guiding, beneficent guiding hand here, who can be like guiding you through, guiding the ship through the waves. You know, it's like Jupiter
mm,
has sort of that sort of vibe of being that invisible hand that's like getting you through the
mm.
labyrinth. And
The hand of fate, right? The hand of
yeah, it's
fortune.
also synchronicities and all these things will come up here. And
Mm,
again, it's like hidden power structures, finding things out about how the world works. That's kind of like, and then gaining power because you realize that there's like a hidden structure
mm.
within the world. So that's Pisces one.
Right. Okay. Very good.
So yeah, that was
Let's move into the second decan then,
into yep,
which is the Nine of Cups is the card correspondent with it, the Lord of
yep,
Happiness. Very
Lord of
cheerful card.
Happiness. Yep,
One of my favorite ones in the cups.
yep, it's a beautiful
And there it
one.
is, the Rider Waite version.
Yep,
Right. So the rulers for this decan are Jupiter by the Chaldean order and the Moon by triplicity.
yes.
Right.
So
And so
this,
interesting, we have this relationship once again here with Moon Jupiter.
yeah,
Uh,
yep. So this is traditionally one of the most beneficent combinations you can get.
mhm.
The moon, and because as I was just saying, the moon has got no fear from Jupiter. Jupiter is always taking care of the moon, and then we also have the
Well, Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, so therefore that's expressive of that very special relationship that Jupiter has with the goddess in her sign
yeah,
of having that exalted
precisely,
status.
and
Right.
it's also a reception of types because of the
Ah.
exaltation of Jupiter in Cancer. So when
Hmm.
the moon goes into Pisces, she has a level of exalt of reception.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Similar to Venus with Saturn in Capricorn because of the
yeah,
exaltation of Saturn in Libra. Okay, right. Interesting. Right. It cut out
exactly
for a
it.
sec.
So
Yeah.
the
Go
image
ahead.
for this decan is the net.
The
Uh,
net.
the
Okay.
net. Yep. So
Hmm.
this is like something that's woven together, where you
Hmm.
have the metaphor is that you have the moon and Jupiter kind of weaving themselves together. It's like the spiritual and the material. So Jupiter being the spiritual and the moon being the material, kind of
Hmm.
like coming together in a way that provides incredible happiness. It's like the
Hmm.
uniting of these two worlds and the confluence. The again, we get into like ideas like synchronicity and things
Hmm.
just coming together to manifest.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's a really beautiful decade potentially.
Mm.
You've got potential too for this to not actually work out so well when you have something like if you have Saturn here or another planet that doesn't fit so well. This can be Mercury here. This can be like the sense like you cannot get these two worlds to get together. You cannot get like
Can't get
a
them to communicate well. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
with Mercury,
yeah,
I'd
no
see because
matter
Mercury being in fall there particularly, yeah, would not.
right. So Mercury
Yeah.
could wind up on one side or the other of this, where it's like, it's just stuck in the material, where it's just like analyzing things and just all it's seeing
Yeah.
is the material aspects of it and completely like,
Yeah.
not getting that there's a whole like spiritual aspect to life. Or you can,
Or
you can be completely on that other side where you're like not caring about the material world and you're just
yep.
simply like off in woo woo land and like,
Yeah, this renunciate. Yeah, exactly. You get that a lot with these new age types that are just
yeah, exactly.
neglect
Where
or the maybe more Gnostic idea even of like the body is evil and like just wanting to just like do away with it. And I don't know, maybe that's just because we are kind of in a spiritual realm, so I could say I could see
yeah,
Gnosticism kind of that philosophy fitting in this kind of Piscean
yeah,
area, but
for sure.
so
Yeah, this
so
is because Jupiter is a lot about religion. Definitely
no,
a
yeah.
lot
Well,
about
it is he's the priest, right? He's the guru. He's the teacher of
yeah,
both in Sagittarius and here, but yeah, but certainly
yeah,
the
and
instructor, right?
instructor. And there's a lot of ways that can go wrong too. That can be very
Of course.
abused. You know,
That
you
could be
can
cult leader. That could be, you're
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
someone
this
that's taking power just for their own to exploit others, essentially. Yeah.
right. Yeah, this
So,
is the moon can be that which you exploit here too. This can be, this
hmm
can be a very exploitative decan where you've got some, some
emotional
sort
energy.
of sense of like where you're portraying yourself as somebody who has brought these two things together. And
Hmm
the net then is like, you're the fisher of men, you're
You're
like
trapping
out
them.
there
Exactly. Yeah. So
trolling
it's,
for people with your net, essentially.
hmm
Up and they see the beautiful vision of the two things brought together in this amazing way. But is it really that? Is it like, and can you maintain that? Is like, some people will find something that's true and they'll start to like preach about it, and they can't maintain it because they're stuck in that idea right there. That's all they have, and
they haven't
that's
explored things
it.
further.
So
They're just exactly, yeah.
yeah,
Lack
that's
of
that's all they get. And it's shiny and it's beautiful, but it's like you don't want to get stuck in that. So there's that sort of potential downfall here in this decan.
hmm,
So this again, it's there's potential for a lot of beauty here. We've moved from something that is like really the first decan is sort of exploratory, where we're starting to feel out the power structures that be, and we're getting like a sense that there's something greater going on in this world. That
hmm
we're there's some like guiding hand that's like getting us through. There's a sense too potentially of loss of control of oneself in these in as we get into this into Pisces. It's like you're not so sure about yourself anymore. You're kind of getting into this place where you
loss of
might
self, like
potentially.
loss of self. Sorry to interrupt. Like loss of identity, or kind of losing controls and falling into like addictive habits. Seems that we are kind of Pisces is kind of associated with
With addiction.
addictions,
Yeah.
and particularly alcohol or substance abuse. Did you have like losing control in that sense,
Yeah,
or how
both
do
of
you,
those things are possible.
right?
Definitely, addiction is certainly a possibility within Pisces. This is
Mm.
like loss of the self into something larger, into larger ideas, into exploration of the body too. It can be
Oh,
like
okay. So a more
it
positive
can
one
be.
too, right? Where you lose yourself in terms of maybe you give up the old sense of self and kind of expand your awareness of things that are greater than yourself, even like having some, I don't know, very profound, I don't know, psychedelic experience or some meditation that kind of I don't know, opened your perception, I guess, to something bigger than you. So would that be more of a positive sense of losing yourself, of just letting yourself
It
kind of
can
go?
be. So
Okay.
the thing is, this sense of you want to be able to do this sort of like immersion into these waters. You want to be able to navigate these waters, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to. They're extremely fraught because there's so many things that you can get into this thing too, where you're like exploring. Like it can be a sexual thing with this decade
Mm,
because you got the moon and Jupiter where they can get kind of lost in the sexual things. You can get like
sure.
sexual addiction here potentially.
Mm-hmm.
The moon being the body, like you get like the tantric kind of like
Jupiter, the expansion of the exploratory, so exploring the body, like you were saying. But
yep,
oftentimes that can mean getting caught in a whirlpool where you just kind of get caught up in habits and addictions and it turns
yeah,
destructive, maybe,
yeah,
right?
like an
So
eddy essentially, like a twirling, like where
that's what I
things
was thinking. Yeah. So,
going
yeah, right.
around and around. Yeah,
Yep, yep.
exactly. So there are definitely, Pisces is a fascinating place, and there's no like lack of stuff you can talk about when you get into Pisces. So
Hmm
let's move into the third decan. We've kind of like gone to this place of like, potentially great happiness and like immersion into the waters of Pisces. We've got a net. We're like collecting people in it, potentially getting all our followers there.
Yep.
And then we get into the third decan, which
Right. Third decan corresponds to the Ten of Cups, which is the Lord of satiety or satiety, I guess I've also heard it pronounced. But the idea of being fully, I guess, satisfied or even oversatisfied, like almost the idea of getting too much of a good thing is one thing that comes to mind upon looking at this card. So like overly satiated, like whether it be food or whatever appetites, you've just been overly indulged in it, essentially.
yep,
The rulers for this are, well, it's Mars, both. It's doubly ruling the Chaldean and the triplicity. Which interesting
right,
because this also, this is like the Ouroboros also meeting, the tail with the head, which is Aries, right? So
yep,
because Aries, Mars will also rule the Decans of Aries. So we're entering a very extended Martian territory here.
Yes, we are.
So,
Yep, yep. The Mars is rules the end and the beginning here. So
yep.
this is this decan is when we look back at the decans, we get that idea of satiety, and that's very much the first decan of Scorpio, where this incredible desire. So we're back in a
Mm-hmm.
very scorpionic place, but we're also in Pisces territory still. So we've got
It cut out, Michael.
sort of influence. So this
You
deckhand
said
can go
something.
very good and it can go very bad. We got
Okay,
potential
yeah,
here. We got two fishes here. We can get
yeah.
this. This can be everything that you see in that RWS tarot card. It can be that incredibly happy family. They look like they got everything, but one of the actual images for this decan, and this crosses a lot of cultures, is a bowl of blood.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right,
a bowl
right.
of blood. Yep.
Well,
So
very,
this
very
is
Martian.
yeah, this is very Martian. This is the sacrifice.
Holy,
This is
okay.
where we sacrifice. And when we get into the these ideas of sacrifice, we have to think about the dying and rising God, of course,
Aha. Of
who
course.
dies. So each season ends, and one of these gods dies to have another one reborn. So there's, if you look at the tarot in another way, you'll see that there's there's whole cards that represent seasons, and these are each the those are your sort of Dionysus slash Persephone, who are, they live for a season, then they die off, and then another one is reborn to next. So this is
Right,
our
right.
bowl of blood, is the sacrifice here, and
Yeah.
it's like, here we can see the person who is so immersed in this Piscean territory that they have sacrificed everything. And there is usually somebody to whom they have sacrificed this, or somebody with whom they have sacrificed everything to be. And what we learn at this point is that could be the wrong person. They've just
Mm-hmm.
done all of this to give it all to the wrong person. So you could get really screwed over here. This is a place where you could have made the wrong choice, that you've invested everything, this whole journey, and you find out that you're left with nothing but a bowl of blood, that this is all you got left.
Mm,
However,
right.
you may have made the right choice, but the thing is, ultimately, we're because this is the final decan of a mutable sign. So we looked back at all of the final decans of the mutable signs. They've all been really problematic.
Right.
Despite
Right. We'll
this one
just
looking really nice, this one is equally, if not more problematic, because we've gone the whole way and we may have screwed the whole damn thing up at this point.
yep. Yeah, because we're almost back at the equinox at this point.
Yep.
And so getting close to that anaretic degree, sorry, which is always, of course, the last decan of every sign,
Right.
always the more problematic because it's transitional, right?
Right.
And kind of unclear because
Yeah.
it's like walking through a doorway. There's your perceptions are blocked for a moment as you're passing through into the next
Yeah.
room, let's say, right? So,
Yeah. So
uh,
it's another Lyman. It's
sorry, it cut out.
where you're making your way from one reality into a new reality, and this is the end of the beginning of the fertile year and the end of the infertile year, where we were all in the underworld, and now we're about to emerge like Persephone into the upper world. We're going from the land of Pluto into the land of Artemis. There's all of these seasonal rulerships too. We're halfway through the year of Apollo at this
Mhm.
point, and so yeah, this is the end of it all. This is Mars. So Mars here is potentially very powerful. Again, it's very scorpionic. It's about
Mhm.
like getting what you want,
It's
but
that it's that individuating force because again we're here very close to that emergence of the new year being birthed, which is like the glyph of Mars, which is the circle, right, and the
yeah,
arrow emerging. So that's kind of what comes to mind, that you have actually breaking through and being birthed, that kind of violent, bloody
right,
moment, right? And you need only Mars has sufficient force to really break through
yeah,
that tough ground layer of ground into the world, right? So, and that's kind
yeah,
of interesting. That's why the bowl of blood is there. That could almost be like the blood of the womb, maybe. I'm
yeah,
just playing with ideas right here because essentially where
yeah.
we're at is the birth canal. Essentially, at this
Right.
point, where
That's
you're not quite in the world yet. You're in between worlds, but you're about to be.
yep.
Uh,
Yeah, that's exactly it. The bowl of blood is definitely the blood of the newborn. That's the
Hmm.
blood that's coming out of the mother.
Yeah,
That's exactly
which that
it.
you can see the chalice is like, it's the cup, so it's a very feminine symbol, right? The
Yeah,
receptive that's
yeah,
holding the blood that's going to nurture the child too, right? So
yeah, yeah. And
interesting.
again, this is Pisces, so we've got two potentialities. We've got two fish in play here. But in this case, they're both Mars. they're
Yeah,
both we're both ending. It's going to end with Mars. There's
yeah.
no two ways about it. We're still under Jupiter rule, so we're involved in something much bigger than ourselves here.
Uh-huh.
So this is also gives us the this we should recognize here that Mars is very closely related to Dionysus. Uh,
Mm,
there's like it's an aspect of Dionysus. It's a certain like part
right,
of
which
that.
corresponds to wine. It's just an image that comes to mind, which corresponds to blood, because there's
But yeah,
obviously wine. It can be a substitute representation of blood in many cases, right?
right,
Many rituals.
right,
So yeah, interesting. You
absolutely.
bring Dionysus up here, right?
Yep,
Also a solar figure that's very very akin to or correspondent to this season of the equinox more, right? Maybe more like that
right,
the
right.
birthing and right
Yep,
excess and all of those being kind of drunken, becoming drunk in ecstasy, but being we're talking about
yep,
Pisces here, which is also very correlated to alcohol or to being kind of inebriated or
right.
intoxicated and almost
Yeah,
like high off
yep,
of whatever
yep.
your
And
environment
it's
is, like some
potentially
fumes or
like
something. Sorry, go ahead.
religious like intoxication. It's like a religious
That's what I mean.
intoxication.
Religious,
Like
yeah,
yeah, it's
by virtue of
which brings you
Jupiter,
back
right?
to the mystery cults where they would basically they would dose you with all sorts of like kykeon or other types of
This is
substances, and
like
so
the
this is
Eleusinian mysteries you're referring to,
yeah,
kind of more like
exactly
that,
the
yeah.
Eleusinian mysteries and any of the mystery cults that pervaded the Near East and the Mediterranean, because that was the mystery cult culture. This is what like my work in terms of like
Oh
Venus and
yes.
Virgo and all of
Hmm.
the everything I've been working on is trying to like show the connection between the mystery cults and astrology is
No,
far
yeah.
far far stronger than people realize. That all of the techniques of astrology are in fact go back to they have this whole other meaning, which is
Hmm.
sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not, but it's all mystery cult. And that's actually the Christianity was in fact the born out of the mystery cults, and it was, I mean, Christ was a stellar prophet.
A prototype, yeah, essentially, yeah, like Dionysus or Mithra or any of these other Horus, even in
He
Egypt,
was the
right?
baby Zagreus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, right,
and
right. No,
it's
absolutely. You do a very
yeah,
good job too in your book. Just by the way, if anyone hasn't read Michael's book, Venus in Virgo, Archetypes of Goddess Consciousness, it's a very fascinating read. I really recommend it for anybody that's interested in astrology on any level, especially if you're a beginner, because precisely you do a very good job at tying in the context of the cults, and of course since it's centered on Venus, also on Mercury, kind of the role of the goddess and all this. It's a very interesting, unique perspective that I've never heard anybody else present, which is part of what was really drawn to your work. But
yeah. Thank
just
you.
as yeah, absolutely. Um, so we're nearing the end essentially of the whole zodiac now.
We are at the end of the whole zodiac at this point. There's
Right.
all
What
full
takeaways?
complete.
Because it kind of seems like you're at the edge of the precipice where you're about to, come back to the beginning again. The fool's completed his journey, the hero's journey,
Right.
right? It's coming back to the starting point, but now you've had all these experiences, you've been enlightened, so to speak, right? You've attained something, you've completed your quest.
Yep.
Now here we are again, ready to start another one, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, what would you
Right.
say would be the kind of the concluding thoughts of what we can see, at least in the story of water that we just finished too, being that it started in Cancer at the summer solstice, then down when we entered the underworld in Scorpio, that middle section of it, probably the more intense part of it, and then moving into finishing up Pisces. What's the overall thread of the water story here?
Yeah, the water story. So we began with the Cancer. We have the it's Cancer is in this in the extroverted time of year when
Mhm.
the things are out and obvious in the world. There's like
Yep.
there's it is a time of birth essentially of the goddess bringing things into this next layer of creation where we're the springtime essentially is like cultivation, it's like emergence, and you got Taurus. You've got the the focus on cultivation and careful, like,
Yeah, plenty of
um,
seeds and yeah,
yeah, make sure
yeah,
that
beginning.
you've got all that stuff correct. And then you move
Mhm.
into Gemini where things start going crazy. Cancer, it's like type of, it's a type of birth, but it's more focused on the child, like this
Yeah,
developmental phase.
absolutely.
It's like a
Yeah.
lot of people give it too much birth weight to Cancer. That really is Aries, is like the actual birth event.
Yeah.
The
They're
Cancer is
confusing me
more
with
about,
the mother-child archetype, which is Cancer. But in this case, the
yeah,
child has already been born. It already was born back in Aries. But this is because Cancer is a cardinal sign, and all cardinal signs initiate.
yeah,
Cardinal signs initiate. It's initiating it, so it is sort of birthing something else, right? And as you're
it's,
saying,
yeah,
then
yeah,
continue on
yeah,
that point. Then,
exactly.
um,
And immersion and enmeshments within Cancer, where we start to, there's that bonding with the parents, with the,
mm,
and then going further into that, it's like it's a development of a relationship as we go through the Cancer decans, and it's relatively beneficent. It's very lunar, very primal.
yeah,
Then we move into the martial part, where whereas
Scorpio.
in Cancer we had,
Hmm.
the life force was still an ascent there. It was actually,
Hmm.
the sun is starting to descend as we go
Hmm.
into Cancer, because we've gotten past the solstice. So in Scorpio, the life force is in descent towards the roots. So
Mm,
as I say about Scorpio, it's the point where the life force is heading down towards the root, and any impurities, especially psychic impurities, as we're moving into the winter, as we're moving into a place towards the root, that has to be removed, and it has to be dealt with right there
mm,
before it gets into but beyond that point, and it can poison the whole plant. Essentially, it can
right.
cause damage.
This brings to mind, because talking about Scorpio is the Nigredo phase in alchemy, kind of that correspondence, perhaps. Is because you're at the point
Right.
where you're burning everything, you're the blackening stage, right? And then you have to
Blackening.
extract all the toxic, all the impurities essentially out of it, right, to get to the
Right.
whitening phase.
Purification. Yep,
Yeah. So
exactly. It's
there's a very alchemical allegory with this.
Yep.
Is where
Yeah,
we're going with
it's
it.
it's explicit within the decans of,
Yeah.
Scorpio, especially the second decan, the
Especially
very
Scorpio.
center, which
Hmm.
is of course the Halloween decan of
Yeah.
where you've got those impurities are sort of all just taken out. It's like,
Yep.
so from that point on, it's like you've alchemized that. It's removed
That's
that.
your albedo then at that point.
Yeah,
Right. You can
so
move from
it's
Nigredo to
ready to
albedo.
go. Yeah, it's ready to
Right.
go to the next stage at that point.
Would you say
So
Rubedo would then be Pisces, moving into the next, being the final station of the water signs, at least? Because I guess
yeah,
each element is having its own sub alchemical process. Fire,
exactly.
air, earth, and then now we're talking water, right? But
Right, right, right. So the Piscean is like is it's sort of this emergence into something bigger. There's a kind of a loss of the individual into it's a death experience, kind of. You're really putting the self into this larger waters, the bigger waters, the Jupiterian waters.
sure. Mm.
It's very fantastic. It's about fantasy. It's about imagining what's coming. There's a lot of, it's
Hmm.
very fraught, but it's
Fantastical
also,
visions. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And you can see a lot of the structure of life in it, because it's sort of that place where waters takes, you can get the structure of water in
It
icy,
cut out.
because it's like, it's at that end point where
Okay.
it reached a point of purity, and then it's about to, like, be launched again into the world.
Okay. Right. Right. Very good. Maybe since we also we're finishing up the story of air. Did you want to touch on that a little bit, going from Gemini to Libra, then to Aquarius? Since I guess we didn't.
Yeah, so that's a the Gemini. So I mean, you've got to, like, look at it, like, in terms of, you got your cardinal sign, of course, is
Libra,
going to
right?
be, so that essentially is the most airy of the, because it's air asserting itself at the beginning of a season. So
Yeah.
some say that, traditionally they say that, the that is kind of the essence of, it's the most dry of the seasons,
The fall.
the
Hmm.
autumn.
The
it's
autumn.
it's cold and dry, even though it's not as cold as winter. Winter is cold and wet.
Yeah.
So the
Right.
fall is going to be the purest air sort of overall of the feeling. So if you start with Gemini, you've got like that is, that's when you've got the life force is essentially aerating. It's when things are
Mhm.
spreading out and the possibilities. There's a very sexual aspect of that air, especially because it's that's in the extroverted season when things are pollinating. Literally
Right.
pollinating.
So would you put Gemini last? So go Libra, then Aquarius, and then last Gemini, essentially,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
the cardinal effect's mutable that way.
If you're gonna
So,
do it strictly, that's the way you'd want to start. You'd want to
right,
start with air. The air story really starts with Libra.
right.
It
But just
continues.
due to zodiacal right order, right, you end
Yeah,
up with touching Gemini first. But yeah, right, individually, you have to start each story at the cardinal sign and work your way through, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's typically the way you'd want to do it.
so the
So,
same even with Capricorn then for the Earth. That's where the story of Earth starts there,
yep.
and then moving into Taurus, which of course we talked about, we touched on,
Right.
and then culminating in finishing up in Virgo, right? Which
Virgo. Yep. Yeah, precisely. And the
yeah,
fire story obviously starts with Aries and then
right,
goes to
Aries, Leo,
Leo.
Sagittarius, right, which
Yep.
we covered
Yeah,
before.
yeah. So that could be its own like probably another podcast, just like
Okay, potentially.
walking
I mean,
through that entire.
it's a fascinating topic to explore, and you're very knowledgeable on these things. So I love to like pick your brain and just explore your whatever it is you're able to explain here. Well, we'll make sure to talk about that later. And
Yeah.
coordinate that if that could be its own show. Because yeah, we've gone for pretty long now. So maybe we will just call it good here. But I wanted to thank you very much for doing this series with me. It's taken quite some time, but I felt we did it justice. We were able to go into sufficient detail to really explore all of the subtleties that each one of these decans conceals, and hopefully integrate it into more of my practice and even my writing. Because I see you do, because I read your Scorpio full moon one too. You can really see it, like kind of hone in like on a microscope, right? With the energy of the specific degree, right? Looking at that, the decan rulers of that give you that so much more context to what's happening
Yeah,
in the bigger
yeah.
picture
If
of
you start
things.
bringing in the deckhands, definitely give you a whole extra layer of detail about what's really going on, and it's
Mm.
I totally recommend to anybody who's practicing astrology to spend some time with the deckhands. It's incredibly fun too, and just like as a storytelling aspect to astrology, it like adds this a
Hmm.
whole other layer to it that's really just kind of delightful. It just
Yeah.
like never ends.
Yeah, no,
Really beautiful, and
absolutely.
you see a lot more connection too when you get into it, because then it's like the connections between different areas of zodiac, and like you get you see like a couple archetypes like paired together. Like we didn't go into it too much, but like you only find the moon and Mars together once, and that's in the middle decan of Sagittarius. There's other like
Ah,
situations like
mhm.
there's only a few combinations that are unique with it. I didn't really, that would have taken too much time.
We
But
can make that a different show for sure. But
yeah,
finish your thought. Finish the thought. But
you could definitely do that. So like, yeah, I totally recommend if you want to write about astrology, especially to like
yeah,
get into the decans and really get a feel for them, because it's super fun, and like it's just it's like a well that you can just keep going to, and it's it's delightful.
yeah. No, I'm sure. I will keep looking into it, and I'll probably have plenty more questions for you. Enough to do another separate show here. So, all right. Well, we'll end it with that then. Thank you so much again, Michael. Thank you everybody for joining us for this series. And as always, as above, so below, as within, as without.